Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Natalie Boyum, and I am the president and founder of the Defeating Epilepsy Foundation. We are a 501c3 in Southern California, and our mission is to provide the advocacy and educational resources needed to the epilepsy community and our society. We welcome you to our new series, Living Healthy with Dr. Kate. Dr. Kate Couchman is a health coach in South Africa. Kate has epilepsy and has a passion to help those battling epilepsy live a happy and healthy life. In this discussion, we will be focusing on stress and epilepsy. How can we work towards decreasing stress and finding an overall balance in life? Stress is a trigger for seizures, and reducing stress can be a challenge for many battling epilepsy. Stress is something you have addressed with your clients, Kate. For our members watching, what can be the long-term effects for people who are battling epilepsy if they are experiencing chronic levels of stress?
Well, chronic stress generally occurs when we feel as if we can't cope anymore, as if we've run out of our resources to keep us going. Therefore, it's common to feel overwhelmed or anxious or maybe even depressed and tend to withdraw a little bit. These feelings can often aggravate our stress, impacting on our stress levels, and this can start impacting on our behavior, such as how we sleep, what we're eating, how much we're eating, and how we interact with others. As we're all so incredibly different, and depending on what stage our stress is at, we may not be able to get to sleep. Because as soon as we lie in bed, then our mind just starts racing, going over everything that we should be doing, or feeling guilty about certain things, blaming ourselves or others, how we could have done things better. The list just goes on. On the other hand, we could end up being absolutely exhausted and therefore sleeping more than normal, not being as productive as we usually are. And this can result in further stress, which aggravates this cycle even more. Similarly, with food, when some of us are stressed, we reach for comfort food, which differs for each person. And generally it's stodgy carbohydrates, sweets, biscuits, chocolates, crisps. And these release a burst of energy and a little bit of serotonin. It makes us feel good in the short term, often crash afterwards. And so then it just upsets the whole cycle. And when we have that crash, then our bodies release cortisol, which is a stress hormone again. So it does upset the body. However, some of us lose our appetites, or we may feel nauseous, get a bit of acid reflux, and just not feel like ourselves. From a behavioral perspective, some people can withdraw when they feel stressed, and so don't maintain their regular activities that help them to feel good, such as socializing or exercising, and they just don't get out as much as they usually do in order to get their natural endorphins. And the balance, fun, and hard work completely goes out of whack, making stress seem even worse and impacting on their lives more so. So the potential lack of sleep, unstable blood sugars, maybe turning to alcohol or drugs to help people cope during stressful situations are all common triggers for people with epilepsy, and why nearly 90% of people with epilepsy say that managing their stress levels is vital to help with seizure control.
Oh, it is vital to help with seizure control. I have found the reason I've been able to keep mine under control has been really the primary thing has been exercise and eating well. And I noticed, in a stressful situation, here we're all battling with COVID at this time. And I found a lot of bad habits I went back to while battling COVID. I had a lot of cognitive impairment And I was afraid actually to use the stove. A couple times I started cooking something, walked away and completely forgot I was cooking. And thank goodness my husband was home and caught it. So for quite a while, I would just, if I was really hungry, order something and not thinking of, okay, it's processed. Even if I looked for something a little healthier, such as a sandwich rather than a fast food meal. And I found because of the stress of my body dealing with COVID and it being so inflamed that I gained weight without even eating that much. And I know it ties to cortisol. A lot of people, when they get very stressed, easily can gain 20, 30, 40 pounds without even changing their meal plan. And it ties down to the body is in such a constant stage of fight or flight. It just, things just go out of whack so badly. So I think it's important for people with epilepsy to truly understand a lot of things tie so much to how we balance our everyday lives.
Absolutely. And so there's so many things, like when you go onto various Facebook groups, and a lot of people with epilepsy say that how frustrated they feel when well-meaning people say that, meditation helps with epilepsy, or certain diets help with epilepsy. And on its own, it may not, certainly not cure it. However, because of the impact that it has from a stress perspective, together they work beautifully. And yes, we are all individual, and we may not want to meditate, or we may not want to exercise. It's about finding what works for you and finding your solutions. And that's what's so beautiful as a health coach, is walking alongside each person in order to find their solutions. So I think often, well-meaning people may give advice. And as someone with epilepsy, it's easy to just dismiss that advice. But I think if we listen to the core of what their intentions are, then there's often so much truth in it.
Oh, absolutely. And I think one of the frustrations with people who do mean well and may say something is, I think the fact that they can't relate to what it's like to have epilepsy or be on anticonvulsants. They really, can't relate to what we're feeling. For example, when I was on Depakote, I gained almost 30 pounds just going on the medicine, and my family became very frustrated, and all I had to hear all the time was, you need to lose weight. Well, I didn't even change my eating habits. It just was a side effect of the medicine. And instead of getting me off the medicine, I had to hear on a continuous basis how fat I was. And long term, I ended up developing an eating disorder from it. And so I think a lot of times when people are trying to push somebody to what they feel is better for them, they don't realize how people with epilepsy process and take it in. And I think that's why one of my things that I truly advocate for is not just better care for people with epilepsy when it comes to medication, doctor-patient relations, but also mental wellness. If we're not mentally well, we're not physically well. We have to have both.
100%.
We have to find a balance, because if one is out of balance, it throws the other one out of balance and it backfires.
I do also, medication I think is absolutely essential. I'm not ditching that, but I also think it's vital to communicate with your doctor
Oh,
well,
yes.
in that if you're experiencing you're not happy with, to communicate that, because there's such a variety. And so it's about what works for you.
Oh, yeah. I mean, right now I don't have a neurologist because I've had such a frustration trying to find a good one here in the States. They're very limited. And I changed my medical group trying to get in to see an epileptologist. And as I went into that medical group, he left the medical group. And the doctor that my primary doctor referred me to, I refused to go see him. And my doctor was frustrated. And I said, look, I did a search on him. And I said, I can't tell you how many 1-star reviews he had. And the repeated pattern is he doesn't listen, and he easily gets angry and talks down to people, or at times even yells at patients. And I said, with my background, all these years of what I've dealt with, plus having PTSD, he yells at me, he's getting it right back from me. And I don't want to put myself in a situation like that. It's not healthy for me, and it will cause toxicity in a doctor-patient relationship when a patient gets assertive back. So why even put myself in that situation? And I think that's what a lot of people with epilepsy, I can't speak on a global level, but I can say here in the US, they really just lack they just want to have a civil conversation with their doctor and be heard. And I find so many people feel they can't do that.
We've certainly got, I was chatting to someone the other day who had just been to a new neurologist. Her previous neurologist had retired, and the new neurologist put her on a 24-hour EEG. And she's a 65-year-old lady, knew that she had epilepsy. Now suddenly she's been given a label. She wasn't aware, and it didn't bother her. She was stable. And the new neurologist said to her, "You're having seizures that you're not aware of. So we're going to," she was on 400 milligrams of Keppra. She said, "We need to increase your dose, put her on 2,000 milligrams twice a day from
Oh my
400
goodness.
grams." She had her first tonic-clonic that she had had in 6 years. So now she's having anxiety attacks and is stressed to the nines because suddenly all of this change. And I just think if she was stable beforehand, she may have been having ones that she was unaware of, but she was feeling fine. So sometimes you think that just because the data's there, she's feeling fine. How much do we need to mess with the body?
Yeah.
And I think often in South Africa, we don't feel as if we're able to challenge doctors because the doctor is the professional.
Mhm. It's the same thing over here. When I was growing up as a child, you didn't question the doctor. And when I got older and I wanted to know why were they doing these things, what was the test results, and they didn't want to answer, I dug my heels in. And I went from a good patient to I was difficult, I was non-compliant.
Mm.
And it wasn't that I didn't want to comply with treatment. It just came down to I had to be able to function to survive. And over here when I was living in New York, I lived in Buffalo, and it's the second most depressed city in the nation. It's a very competitive, aggressive environment because of the lack of there's such a low level of economic opportunity. It's high levels of economic inequality. There's sadly a lot of systemic racism. So because of the toxicity, you have to be on your game. And being over medicated and wearing, having chronic fatigue from it, I knew I wouldn't survive. So challenging my doctors to make sure I had that balance really caused, sadly, the doctors to become even more difficult with me. My heart goes out to that woman to go from 400 milligrams a day to now 4,000. I'm surprised she didn't get even sicker than what she did. You think he would have slowly just eased it up and then just seen what happened from there. I mean, I'm not even a doctor, and that sounds so dangerous.
Absolutely. And found the level that worked for her, especially with anticonvulsants when too much causes seizures and too little causes seizures. So it's so individual. Yeah. And I think you're absolutely right. It's not a matter of being difficult. It's a matter of understanding your body and understanding what's right for you, because we're not a textbook and we're not a guinea pig in a laboratory. We are people and our bodies work differently because of our stress levels, because of our environments that we're living in. And so everything within us functions differently. And many of us are on more than one anticonvulsant. And so how do they interact? What vitamins are we taking to support our bodies? And yeah, it does all work together.
I like what you brought up, saying that as humans we're not textbooks. And the reason I like that you pointed that out, I did an interview maybe about a month ago with a doctor and a neurodiagnostic technician. We were talking about being in the epilepsy monitoring unit, what to expect, how EEGs operate. And one thing she pointed out was when she went to school, she goes, yes, I saw lots of pictures. I learned about the basics. She goes, but I really didn't obtain the knowledge I needed until I stepped on the floor and actually started working with patients. She goes, there's so many things that people don't realize we have to take into consideration. She says it depends on the brain development, how old the person is, what medicine are they on, or the combination, where are the seizures happening. She goes, what may be normal for you could be abnormal for somebody else. And she said the problem is that really is not disclosed to patients, that they are so unique, and this is, every case is an individual case. There's no, I guess you could say, textbook example for everybody.
And I think many people like to treat us like textbooks because it's safe and it's easy and the theory is there. But
Yes.
I also did, when I started off, I was studying medicine. I also had to do my 2 years of hospital rounds, and yeah, it's fascinating. People don't respond as they should respond.
Yes.
You do learn so much doing that though. And yeah, people are fascinating.
Well, you were saying that meditation was one of the good ways to alleviate stress, but what are some other ways people can alleviate stress when battling epilepsy?
So, as I said before, because we are so different, if we are aware of how our stress is impacting our lives, then that's where we need to start. If for us it's our work-fun balance that's being tipped, then we need to find ways to have more fun, whether it's happy music for us or time with friends. I did mention meditation, but if you hate the thought of meditation, then don't do it. Do something that does work for you. Ensure that you have a healthy routine. That, I think, for people with epilepsy is important. And I know just because you want to go to sleep, it doesn't mean that you're going to fall asleep, but getting into bed at the same time without your phone is important. So every night you're in bed, whether you're reading or doing whatever you want to do, that's absolutely fine. But it's just training your brain that this is bedtime, this is relaxation time. Making sure that you eat a healthy, balanced diet with lots of vegetables so that you can nourish your through the stress situation. Don't, no matter how much you're craving sugars, this is a little like secret, but often your brain knows that sugar will convert to fat.
Mm-hmm.
So if you give your body good fats like avocados, nuts and seeds, olives, those kind of things, that's what your body's craving in a stressful situation because it makes healthy hormones. So obviously making cortisol is a hormone, adrenaline is a hormone. So it needs to make them. So if we're providing our body with all those good fats, it can continue to make them. It needs to make them in order to survive through this stressful situation.
No, and that
By having
really is a
sugar,
good point.
sugar doesn't convert into the hormone making, and it just converts into fat that sits on our hips and puts extra stress onto our body, so makes us struggle even more. Exercise is a lovely stress relief, and sometimes we're not in the mood for it, but it's all about moving your body in a way that you want to. So it doesn't mean going for a run necessarily. It doesn't mean getting into the gym necessarily. It may be playing with your pets. It may be putting the music on and dancing. It may be getting out into your garden, whatever works for you, and time in the sun. Just a little bit of time so that the vitamin D can help to improve your mood. Those would be my top things to help alleviate stress.
Awesome. Well, nutrition plays a role in our overall wellness. Can some foods cause stress to the body, and what would be a good option to prevent it?
Absolutely. Sugar is our enemy as far as stress goes. It causes inflammation and it increases cortisol. So if we eat too much sugar, then our body needs to secrete insulin, and then that helps to absorb all the sugar out of our bloodstream, puts it into our muscles, puts it into our liver, helps to deal with it. And any extra will obviously go to for later. But after it's all dealt with, then we have a blood sugar dip. So it feels a bit like a roller coaster. When we dip, then our mood drops and we often have cravings. And so then we may want an extra coffee, or we want more sugar or something just to help pick us up. When we're down there, we can feel really tired as well. So instead of doing this the whole time, we cut the sugar out, or at least minimize it. And then we don't do this, but instead we just have a nice, gentle day. When there is inflammation in our tummy, it damages the gut lining as well as the good bacteria. And they've shown that the keto diet, which obviously is high fat, improves the gut bacteria. And this helps, it improves our immunity by 70%. Well, 70% of our immunity is in our tummy, and 90% of our serotonin is made by the gut flora, which obviously if we've got swelling going on in our tummy, or if we're eating too much sugar, then that damages our gut flora. Remember, serotonin being our happy hormone. So if we have too much sugar, it wipes out the gut flora, then we can't make that serotonin. So when you are feeling, eating things like oats is really good, bananas, and then protein like chicken, eggs, turkey, and then your good fats, nuts and seeds, avocados, olives, and anything colorful, your berries, and the more colorful your veggies, the better it is.
Oh, awesome. No, I like how you brought into the in discussing this, how all this affects our brain. Many people battling epilepsy get lower serotonin levels. It's one of the side effects due to the anticonvulsant suppressing brain activity to prevent seizures. And I remember being younger when I had real bad clinical depression because of the combination of medication I was on. Not once did a doctor say to me, you know, there's certain foods you can eat that will help you improve mood. It was, okay, we're going to put you on medicine. And short term, the medicine I'd be on, the selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, yes, they did work at first, but once my body became immune to it, then we had to increase it. Then we had to increase it. And before you know it, you feel like a walking zombie. You're so over medicated from it. And I think short term, they do play a role. I had about less than a year ago re-experienced a very nasty trauma. I had a flashback and I started having night terrors from a very serious trauma. And short term, the doctor put me on Zoloft to help with what I was dealing with. And it has helped, but I have found now that I've been on it almost 2 years. I'm looking at it as more, I'm using it now as a crutch than I am to face what I'm facing. So I'm making a goal to work with my new doctor to slowly come off of it and see if I can find ways to deal with it without having to resort to prescription medication. And I think that's one of the biggest challenges for people with epilepsy. Once you're on antidepressants, the side effects are one horrible, but then you just can't stop them because of the withdrawal symptoms. And I think that's a lot of times what scares people, and they want to then stay on them for a sense of security.
100%. And there's such a high percentage of people with epilepsy who have anxiety or depression. And that's my absolute passion, is to help alleviate both the, well, teach proper stress management techniques, but to alleviate the anxiety and help with coping mechanisms so that that's no longer an issue. Like hold people's hands, give them step-by-step methods so that epilepsy is difficult enough to cope with. But once that's kind of shed off your shoulders, you can feel so much lighter, and the stress levels are alleviated. And then, then we deal with the next step, and then we go with the next step, and life just feels so much easier without the heaviness of a depression or the scariness of anxiety. And absolutely, like, medication is necessary for a lot of things, 100%. But knowing that there's a solution, knowing that we can get through it, is what I like to look forward to.
Oh, absolutely. Well, as a health coach, you help people reach goals and obtain overall wellness. What else should people be focusing on besides the fact that they have epilepsy?
I was always very aware when my stress level started rising, because I knew that I couldn't let them get out of hand. Otherwise, I'd end up in hospital for a few days. For me, when I had seizures, it was pretty much, I'd have a cluster. And so I would be wiped out for about 3-4 days, sometimes not knowing my own name for about 3 days. So it really would whack me for a while. So it's really important to know what your triggers are and to learn how to manage them. Many people speak about how important yoga is or how important exercise is. They may not be the thing, but they are proven to lower your stress. What is important is that we manage your stress in the way that you feel comfortable so that you get your seizures under control. That's exactly what I do as a health coach. I walk alongside you step by step, finding solutions for you so that you can manage your stress and therefore break free from anxiety so you can live a full, energetic life with loads of confidence, reaching your goals, being as happy as you want to be.
And that's awesome. And I think that's something everyone with epilepsy should be working towards, as hard as it is to live with it, to make a goal to achieve overall wellness so that despite having a neurological disorder, they can live and fulfill their life, in every way they can. I think the one thing I've been so lucky with in getting mine at least under control is I hear so many stories now since doing my work, and I know with the aggravations I've had in life, I'm not the only one. I don't feel the level of isolation I did in my youth. And I feel connecting to not just the epilepsy community, but the disability community in general. It's heartbreaking, at least for me. I've met so many people with so many different disabilities, and despite what they're dealing with, they do what they can to make the best of it. I'm part of a nonprofit organization that brings together disabled people, and they're entrepreneurs. And the ideas so many of these people have come up with in setting goals for their lives and establishing careers, it's really wonderful. And pretty much we've all said the same thing to one another, that, we realize, sadly, because of the stigma that we face in society, the only way to survive is to be our own boss. And if we're going to be our own boss, we're going to make the very best of it and show people what we're capable of and what our potential is. And it's so good to have that level of support in a group with people that I've met who have all sorts of physical, learning, mental disabilities. And yet, despite what they're facing, they're ready to put 2 feet forward and do the very best they can.
And I think support is so important, but just ensuring that you find the right support, because there's an awful lot of groups out there that seem to be comparing how bad their seizures are or how many meds they're on, and not constructive necessarily, and not supportive. It's interesting to know how many meds you're on and to know the side effects, but I also think it's vital to support and encourage and move you forward,
Oh,
not just
absolutely.
where you are. So yeah, just making sure that you've got that network of people that can help to, if you're having a bad day and you're feeling absolutely rubbish, to help you remember that there's a silver lining and that you're going to be okay,
Oh,
that there
yeah.
is hope.
No, that was one of the frustrations I had when I first joined social media and finding groups where I could find people who had epilepsy. I found some groups where they were wonderful and lifted people up. And then I found groups where, like you said, they were comparing, well, I have these kind of seizures and I'm on all this med, almost like a competition of who had it worse. And I thought to myself, I can't get dragged into that. Yes, I've been there, but I don't want to go back there. I got to break
Yeah,
free of that.
yeah,
But no, I think it's great that this is, for so many, a first step to I think laying out a plan. And I want people who are watching this today to know, if the doctor or nurse practitioner or someone you see is not supportive of this, there's nothing wrong with either seeking a second opinion or just make goals for yourself. One of the strongest things I've done is simply just making a journal and keeping track of what I eat or exercise. And if I have a good day and accomplish something that I thought I couldn't, I just write a little note to myself that, hey, you did it. And sometimes just going back when you're having a bad day and looking at those notes and seeing good things came out of it can be such a booster for when, especially when you're in a state of depression.
absolutely. Celebrating your wins is so important, even if they seem like something small and to other people may be insignificant. It's really important to acknowledge them. I think so often we're so hard on ourselves.
Oh, yeah.
And people that I work with, I often say, right, what are you doing that's nice for yourself this week? Almost every week, we're celebrating something that we've done, because it's important. Like, life's tough. So we need to do more things that are good, just to have fun and to ensure that we're happy. Because the happier we are, then the less stress we have.
No, absolutely. It's true. And to be happy, it's an absolute essential, thing we need to have in order to get through life. Well, that is all the time we have for today. Again, I want to thank Kate for coming and taking part. To see the great work we are doing, like our social media pages and subscribe to our YouTube channel. We invite you to visit our website at www.defeatingepilepsy.org to see how we are making a difference for the epilepsy community. Thank you for your support, and together we will defeat epilepsy. Take care.